so that Trump cannot pardon these people. The president does not have pardon power over state convictions. Governors do. The president can pardon anybody on a federal crime. Greetings and welcome, Rush Limbaugh, and excuse me, still open line Friday. We've got 3 big hours here to wrap up the busy broadcast week. And again, the phone number is 800-282-2882. The email address is rushbo@eibnet.us. So this is now, they're making a beeline for Trump's tax returns. They're making a when they give the CFO of the Trump organization, this guy was hired by Trump's dad. That is how long this guy has been there. And when you give somebody immunity like this, they have to pipe up. I mean, they have to speak up. And who knows what the probe is here. They're telling us that all of this is related to Cohen and campaign finance, but the CFO of the entire Trump organization is probably going to have more knowledge than just the things Cohen's been involved in. If you recall, the Democrats and the drive-bys have been mad as they can be and frustrated as they can be the fact Trump has not turned over his tax returns and released them. Every president running for president in the modern era has done so. Trump has not. And this has frosted them left and right. They believe that Trump's tax returns have some key information that would allow them to get rid of Trump. At two things. One, they believe that Trump's tax returns will show that the Trump organization owes Russia quite a debt, that the Trump organization's been in and out of financial trouble, and that over the years, Russia, Vladimir Putin, various Russian oligarchs and banks have supported and bankrolled Trump during these downtimes. That's what they believe. They are hell-bent to find out. The second thing is, and I forget the year of this, but it's not recent. It happened many, many moons ago. Donald Trump took a tax deduction of nearly $1 billion that was fitted. He did a write-off in the, I think, $800 or $900 million range, and it was permitted. It was allowed. There has not been an audit overturning it. Now, these people, meaning Mueller and all these investigators and the Democrats and the media, all think that there's something very odd about that and would love to find out what that was all about. And if they could somehow get a judgment via an audit that that massive deduction actually should not be allowed, should be reversed. Well, I think this is 20 years ago. The penalties and interest on that would wipe out the Trump organization. Which is when I don't remember when I said this to you. I don't remember when I first mentioned it. But it was after Mueller was hired. So it's been in the last 13 months. I said, if they find a way into the Trump organization, that's where they want to go. That's what their real objective in all of this is. That's where they think, because remember, one thing has not changed. Getting rid of Donald Trump is it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter the pretext. Getting rid of him is all that matters. If they have to ruin Ivanka, if they have to ruin Jared, if they have to ruin Don Jr. and Eric, if so what, they'll do it. That's what this is all about. But when I saw today that Cyrus Vance has some of these cases, that's the Manhattan DA, these are non-pardonable crimes. President cannot pardon things that happen in state courts or that are state crimes, only federal. So he does have pardon power over what might happen, the SDNY, with Manafort and Cohen. But now going and get the Trump Organization CFO and wherever else that's going to lead is another squeezing of the vice to take away a tool Trump has the pardon that would make all these people who have been granted immunity rest a little easier. Now, there's a story that, let's see, this is at the Hill.com. Look at this headline, Spiro Agnew lawyer. Trump should resign to keep Mueller from prosecuting his family. Martin London, a lawyer who represented Spiro Agnew, said that Trump should resign from office to keep federal prosecutors from prosecuting his family. He said, look, it's only going to get worse. And he said, look, we don't know 10% what Mueller has. We don't have any idea what Mueller has been amassing. We think we know that Mueller does everything on collusion, but that's not where Mueller has stopped. By the way, folks, do not misunderstand me. We clearly still have a two-tier justice system here. I still maintain to you that the usual criminals in the original thing that got all this started are getting away scot-free. They're not even being investigated. They're not being looked at. They're not being examined. There's no interest in any of the things that the Clinton campaign did, the DNC, the top leaders of the FBI, the DOJ. They're getting away scot-free with this. They are not under any investigation. There isn't even any curiosity about what they did. What they did apparently is perfectly fine because it's oriented and focused on the one objective that all of inside Washington has, and that is getting rid of Donald Trump, overturning the results of the 2016 election. So this Spiro Agnew lawyer, he says, look, we already have everybody, the rats are leaving the ship. He's lost Richard Gates. He's lost Papadopoulos, meaning Trump. He's lost Michael Cohen. He's lost Michael Flynn. Now he's lost David Pecker. And he's probably going to lose these guys from the Trump organization. They're trying to paint a picture here that Trump is being abandoned by everybody he ever trusted. Abandoned by everybody he ever thought was loyal, which is a big deal to Donald Trump. So they're tightening the vices, and they're making it clear that they don't care about the two-tiered justice system, and they don't care what public opinion about this is, and they haven't the slightest concern over the damage to the Department of Justice that might happen, or to the system of law. They obviously have no concern over what they are doing to our election system. No concern whatsoever. There is one singular, overarching goal and objective, and it is to get rid of President Trump. And I don't think the Mueller investigation I don't think he cares what happens in the midterms. None of this matters. Mueller probably says, I can't control what's going to happen in elections, even though I'm helping to corrupt them. So he's taking matters into his hands of things that he can control. And it's obvious the singular purpose. It doesn't matter what amount of scorched earth there is in the aftermath of this. Such is the hatred. And that's what this is. Such is the personal animosity for Donald Trump. And it knows a lot of levels. They're angry because they think Trump's got a horrible character. They're angry because Trump doesn't speak in ways they think are intelligent and valid. They hate Trump because he had the audacity to even run against them. And believe me, running against Hillary was running against all of them. They hate Trump because he won. They hate Trump because he has demonstrated in less than 2 years that this country can be refocused and remade to be what it was founded to be, whereas these people were undertaking policy changes to make sure America was never that ever again. Trump has shown in less than 2 years that it can be done. These people have been telling us for years and years and years, you got to get with it. The world's changing. America's changing. It's a global economy. It's this or that. The idea that every child is going to do better than his or her parents. Nope, can't make that back anymore. Can't say that's true in America. We're in a decline state. You know the drill. Trump's come along, blown all that up. He's demonstrated these people's incompetence. But the hatred they have for him is limitless. And that kind of hatred never runs out of energy. They may run out of passion now and then, but I don't see any evidence of that yet. But they're never, ever going to run out of energy. But that's why they're passing some of this stuff off to Cyrus Vance, the New York DA. The New York DA is part of this. Looking into the CFO of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg. Anyway, let me take a brief timeout. We'll come back. We will continue. It's Open Line Friday, which means pretty much whatever you want to talk about, we'll pass on.
The most trusted name in talk radio, Rush Limbaugh, on the EIB network. Rush Limbaugh, Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Okay, the contretemps between President Trump and Jeff Sessions continues to ratchet up. Trump continues to tweet that Sessions is not doing his duty as Attorney General, that he's not investigating the Democrats. He's not demanding that such investigations take place. Anybody on the Democrat side, the Hillary campaign, the DNC, over the dossier, the fake dossier. Trump once again pushing back at Sessions for not doing his job. Sessions, of course, says, not only can't I because I recused myself, Sessions says, I am not going to politicize the Department of Justice as long as I'm the Attorney General. I am not going to respond to political pressure brought against me as long as I'm the Attorney General. To which the American left and the Democrats are now all hailing Jeff Sessions as a great guy, as the perfect steward for the Department of Justice. Could not have a better guy in there, somebody standing up to Trump, somebody who knows the score, somebody refusing to be bullied by Trump. The left is filled with praise for Jeff Sessions each and every day, and Trump continues to respond, demanding that Sessions look at the corruption on the other side. Just this morning, Trump urged Sessions to look into all the corruption on the other side. After Sessions disputed Trump's assertion yesterday that Sessions had failed to take control of the Department of Justice. Sessions defended himself yesterday. He said he took control of the Department of Justice the day I was sworn in, which is why we have had unprecedented success at effectuating the president's agenda. While I am Attorney General, the actions of the Department of Justice will not be improperly influenced by political considerations. I demand the highest standards, and where they are not met, I take action. So, Rod Rosenstein, who signed off on the fraudulent Hillary bought and paid for Steele dossier, Rosenstein's met the highest standards? The bottom line is, it's very clear the Department of Justice is heavily influenced by political considerations. That's the problem with it. The Department of Justice is run by political consideration. It's run on political consideration. That is the absolute problem here. This is why Trump is frustrated. You can't deny it, there is a two-tier system of justice. And it really comes down to two things. Democrats, innocent, not even going to be pursued, investigated, or charged. Republicans, guilty. Really isn't any more complicated than that. That is exactly how it's playing out. Trump tweeted this morning in response, Department of Justice will not be properly influenced by political consideration. Jeff, this is great, what everybody wants. So look into all the corruption on the other side, including deleted emails, Comey lies and leaks, Mueller conflicts, McCabe, Strzok, Page, and Orr. I dare say, some historians are going to wonder how it was possible that the DOJ was not even investigating this to me is one of the biggest scandals. certainly in my lifetime. I've talked about it every day this week. I worry that I've talked about it so much that you're going to say, come on, Rush, we know. Move on. But this is just, it's unconscionable to me to witness what is happening, to see it, to have full awareness. I mean, this goes beyond just being unfair. Crying unfair is for babies. This goes so far beyond it. This is first grade corruption. It really is when the known crimes, and even if you don't want to say known, when activity that is so highly suspicious is not even being looked at, but instead being covered up. While at the same time, no evidence of any Trump-Russia collusion has been found. And so rather than wrap up the investigation, what happens? They broaden it. It's not by accident that Rosenstein didn't spell out a crime when giving Mueller this job. DOJ guidelines require a crime be specified to investigate. There wasn't one here. Perfectly clear why. Because the mandate is get Trump. The mandate is do whatever it takes to force Donald Trump out of office, pure and simple. While everybody thinks this investigation was to find evidence the Russians colluded, somehow affected the election, when no such evidence was found, you shut it down. But no. In some ways, you might say this thing hadn't even started yet. And I remember all of these times in the past month where Rudy's been running around saying, oh, yeah, we're going to have this wrapped up 1st September. Oh, yeah, they're almost done. Mueller, we're going to get this done certainly by the end of August, 1st September. And look, I'm sitting there scratching my head. Where's the evidence that this is anywhere near over? We still had, at the last time it was speculated that we're going to have Mueller wrapping up by August 1st. He still has and it then became September 1st, still has another Manafort trial to go. Next month, doesn't start till next month in Washington. Now these people keep being granted immunity to come in. David Pecker, now the CFO of the Trump organization. They're nowhere near shutting this down, folks. And in some ways, I think they're just getting started. Anyway, hang on. Back before you know it. I have a friend who says, Rush, you're forgetting something that's very important in terms of the reason Donald Trump is hated. Yeah, you're right. All the things you've stated, all the reasons you've given, but there's one more reason why they hate Trump, and that's because of how big a conservative he's turned out to be. If Donald Trump were not this rock-ribbed a conservative, it wouldn't be as bad as it is. So goes the theory of an acquaintance of mine. But the fact that Trump has gone all in, like nominating people like Kavanaugh and other judges in that vein, who are strict constructionist conservatives, Neil Gorsuch, that the hatred for Trump has been ramped up. Now, there may be something to that, but I think it may add to the overall hatred and some of the reason, but they're going to hate this guy just because he won. I know it. I know it even better than I can express it. I know exactly who these people are we're talking about. I know why they hate Trump. I know how irrational it is. Trump threatens them in so many ways, and in other ways he insults them. And I don't mean the way he speaks, just his existence, just his carriage. It's the way he walks around and, gives thumbs up and talks to those hayseeds at his rallies and the way they look at it. All of this, it just bugs them. And here's a story. This is the Washington Post, and this is how this works. Here's the headline. Critics fear Trump's attacks are doing lasting damage to the justice system. So you see, what Trump is saying about Jeff Sessions, why, that is doing lasting damage to the justice system. Well, what about what all of these people are saying about the 2016 and 2018 elections? You want to talk about damaging a system? How about the damage to our electoral system done by these people? And they're not finished. You had Bill Nelson, senator in Florida. Yeah, the Russians are already deeply involved in our upcoming elections. Had no evidence, no proof for it. The tech giants, have you heard about this? The tech giants are having a meeting. It may even be this weekend. We're talking Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instant Chat, Up Yours Chat. They're all getting together in San Francisco to decide what they can do to manage this election coming up. Meaning, what can they do to keep further Russian involvement out of it? No, that's not what it really means. Is how can we make sure that conservatism is limited on our forums? How can we make sure that Republican and conservative candidates do not find ways to use our platforms to win elections? That's what they're having meetings about. You want to talk about damaging systems? Donald Trump's words about Jeff Sessions and the DOJ are doing nothing compared to what actual people in the FBI and the DOJ have already done to it. It is, without question, that the Department of Justice has been corrupted, that it has been politicized. It's been politicized in favor of liberal Democrats. So have our electoral systems been tainted for I don't know how long now. And they continue to do that each and every day by worrying about the Russian impact on the upcoming elections. The tech giants now having emergency meetings to figure out how to keep, quote unquote, the Russians from having any more influence on elections like they did in 2016. And there isn't any. Mr. Rosenstein himself. Hey, Greg or Joe, I know we've used this soundbite. I think we've used it. It may just be something that I read in a newspaper story quoting Rosenstein, but he said during the last announced Mueller indictments of the 13 to 12 Russians, so this is some weeks ago now, but he made it plain at the end of this, long after people had stopped listening. He made this point long after all of the indictments had been announced and all the law breaking had been announced. He made it plain that the actions, in fact, he said no one indicted to date. There is no evidence that anyone indicted has changed a single vote. There is no evidence or allegation in these indictments that the outcome of any election has been altered. That is truth. Truth announced by Rosenstein, the people who impaneled Robert Mueller to go find evidence that Trump colluded. He is saying that in every investigation to date, in every indictment to date, no evidence that the Russians had any impact or effect on any vote or any election. They can't find evidence that one vote was changed, and they asserted that no election outcome has been changed. So what are we doing here? We keep talking about Russian meddling. We keep talking about the Russians tampering with the elections. Oh, yeah, Mr. Limbaugh, it happened. You can't deny that it happened. Show me the evidence it mattered. Show me the evidence that it's anything unusual and new. You can't. Corrupting our justice system? Trump's attacks lasting damage to the justice system? Fact of the matter is, Donald Trump is trying to rebuild all this. Fact of the matter is, Donald Trump is trying to recapture an American greatness and reinstitute it, re-implement it, and create its own inertia so American greatness continues to happen on its own. Donald Trump is a victim of a corrupt Justice Department. Donald Trump and his campaign are clearly victims of a justice system that's already damaged. And there's no question about that. And everybody involved on the pursuing Trump side knows all of this, and it doesn't matter. They apparently are not concerned with the damage that they are causing. In fact, the damage they're causing may actually work to their benefit, as long as they can make people think Trump's responsible for it. And how is Trump responsible for it? Well, by winning. By having somebody with as dubious a character, some rascal like this, somebody so unpresidential in charge of these institutions. It's horrible. It's horrible. That's what they want to get as many people believing as they can. So Trump hits Sessions. Sessions hits back saying, I'm not going to be unduly influenced by any politics. But Sessions does appear to be uninterested in any of the illegalities, irregularities, or questionable legal conduct or behavior by those conducting this investigation. And then, of course, on the Russia side of it, he's recused himself from it. So in that side of things, he can't get involved. We'll be back with more Open Line Friday. Hang on. Don't go away.
This is the big one. Rush on the EIB network. Now more Rush on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Honky Talk Women in Memphis. Rolling Stones, the bumper rotation, the EIB network at 12:45 Eastern Time in the afternoon. Here is Dutch as we get started on the phone. Chillicothe, Missouri. Great to have you, Dutch. How are you doing, sir?
I'm just grateful to be able to talk to you today, Mr. Limbaugh.
Thank you, sir, very much. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Well, this you already covered Mr. Sessions somewhat, and the thought and question I had in my mind. From the very beginning, when he recused himself of this whole investigation, and I think that was all related, this recusal was related to Hillary Clinton. I think from my perspective, he stepped aside and said, go at it, boys. And that's what I've been seeing all along because...
Wait. Sessions stepped aside and said, go at it, boys, to who?
Well, to Mueller and his team.
Oh.
Yes, sir. I mean, that's just to me.
Are you suggesting that Sessions has never been actually on Trump's side in this? Is that what you mean to say?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying. It's a pretty bold statement. I mean, Sessions has been. I mean, he was the first U.S. senator to endorse Trump. The first two guys in the House to endorse Trump are under indictment. They're going to go to jail. Duncan Hunter and some guy. I'm not kidding. The first two members of the House to endorse Donald Trump have just been indicted and are of financial irregularities, insider trading, and Dustin is accused of using campaign funds for personal expenses.
Yes.
Personal fun, like vacations to Italy and Duncan Hunter, that kind of thing. Sessions has not been prosecuted, obviously because he's not, in your mind, he's not helping Trump.
Well, it seemed quite clear to me, this statement he made about the politics, being involved in all this, he's stepping back from that. This whole thing has been nothing but political. If he can't see that, and a dummy like me, a deplorable like me from flyover.
Now, he may say it. Look, I know Senator Sessions. I don't know him well. I've had a couple of opportunities to talk with him, and more than just, hey, how you doing? Great to see you. I've interviewed him for the Limbaugh letter. I've talked to him for an hour. And I can tell you this much about him. He looks at the law and the Department of Justice as sacrosanct. And it kind of reminds me of my grandfather, who had such reverence for the law that he would not do or tolerate anything that tainted it. He would not do anything that tainted it or showed disrespect. When others did, Sessions is watching other people taint and sully the Department of Justice. He's not going to do that himself, but I think that he holds it in great reverence. And I think he views the job here as one of caretaker. He is the caretaker. It is his turn to be the steward of the Department of Justice. He doesn't look at it the way Eric Holder. Eric Holder described himself as Obama's wingman. Remember that? And everybody applauded it. Well, Trump has wanted a wingman over there. And when it became known that's what Trump wanted, what did they do? You can't politicize the Department of Justice, you buffoon. It's not there to defend you. The Department of Justice and the Attorney General is not your lawyer. You idiot, you buffoon, you embarrassment. That's what they said to Trump. When Eric Holder is out there saying he's Obama's wingman, they're going, right on, dude, right on. Keep it up. Do what you can to protect Obama. We have so many double standards, it's impossible to even keep track of them. But as far as Sessions is concerned, and look, I don't know him well enough to say with ontological certitude here, so I need some flexibility to be wrong. But I think he looks at this as a stewardship of a great institution. And under his watch, all it's going to be is a great center of justice and law. And it isn't going to be politicized by him, now, George W. Bush was the exact same way about the presidency. How did that manifest itself? George W. Bush refused. There was politics all around him. People were politicizing the presidency for decades before he got it. They were politicizing his role as president. There were never-ending criticisms. What did he say? I'm not going to take this office down to the level of the gutter by responding to it. So George W. Bush viewed himself as a steward and a guardian of a precious, unique thing, the presidency of the United States. And by his own actions, he wasn't going to sully it. I think we're looking at the exact same type of thinking with Jeff Sessions. When other people do it, well, that's their problem. And to the extent that he can stop it from happening, he will. So when Donald Trump tells him, why don't you go after the sleaze bags over there? Sessions will say, this department will not be politicized and respond favorably to such requests. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of corruption and politicization already going on that he doesn't seem interested in stopping. But at least he isn't doing it. Moving on, we have Alan in Yorba Linda, California. It's great to have you with us, sir, on Open Line Friday. By the way, you represent something today that hasn't happened in a long time. You are the second caller in the first hour. That is so rare on this program. You should be honored.
I am honored, Rush. Thank you very much.
You bet, sir.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, sir.
And I've been a listener since 1990. What I'm calling about is in regards to John Huber, the attorney that Sessions appointed instead of a second prosecutor. He appointed him to take care of all the garbage that is Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and all their cronies. This is happening now in states around the United States, Utah, where it's a red state, where you can panel grand juries that will indict.
They really are. And I have to tell you this. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that Sessions and Trump have been with each other a number of times in the past couple of weeks. And people tell me that you wouldn't see, there isn't any evidence these two are at loggerheads with each other. That they're getting along famously well, that everything appears fine, all this stuff that Trump is saying about Sessions and Sessions is reacting to. When these two get together, people say they're not seeing any evidence of it. So, who knows? As is the case with everything, we just wait. And when we wait, you can't help but be affected by drive-by media and their headlines. The drive-by media, I got an email from a friend, and the subject line was only partially visible. And the subject line was, oh, my God, they're already starting their eulogies. And then that's all I saw. I thought the subject line was going to be for Trump. because of the CFO now being granted immunity in Cohen, but it wasn't. The emailer was telling me that they're already beginning the eulogies for McCain. But I'm telling you, the left thinks Trump is done now. You can see it. I mean, all you have to do is peruse 5 or 6 Drudge Report headlines, and you will be convinced it's over. It's just a matter of time now to play it out. I'm not kidding. And that's one of the purposes of these stories, so that they generate headlines like that. But there is something to be said for these people now using the Manhattan DA for some of these new charges and looking into the Trump company, Trump organization. Believe me, I don't want to repeat my first hour because it's done and in the can, but they're going to stop at nothing to get the guy. And they'll stop at nothing at ruining him, folks. I think this is what people need to understand. We are up against people. Donald Trump represents the clearest, gravest threat to their way of life that they have ever seen, including the Soviets, including the Chi-Coms, including 9/11. These people feel frightened, more frightened and more on edge with Donald Trump being elected to president than they ever felt during or after 9/11. And I am not making this up. Donald Trump represents the gravest threat to their lifestyle, to their careers, to their standing, to their daily contentment and happiness, the greatest threat they've ever faced. He is specifically what they despise. He is specifically what they have arranged. I mean, these people in the Washington establishment thought they had it all taken care of, that Trump could not happen, that an outsider, knowing so little about how Washington works and using so few people and resources from inside the Beltway, no way could anybody ever beat them. They thought that they had a closed system that nobody could infiltrate, that nobody could come in and win. It's just the NFL owners. The NFL owners and the people that finance them and all this, they've got a system, and there's no way somebody they don't want is going to end up in the NFL. It's the same thing with any highfalutin club. One of the first things they do is to take steps to make sure the people they do not want in do not get in. And they try to handle every quirk they can imagine. They never dreamed Donald Trump would run for president. Well, they might have dreamed it, but they never thought it would be real. They always thought it'd be a publicity stunt. They never thought he would win. The fact that he did and upended somebody they think could not lose. They haven't been normal since. They haven't been of sound mind since. They have been singularly focused on taking care of this threat. This is no different than having something could literally destroy you find its way into your house. You would stop everything to get it out. I don't care what it is. If it was a sand flea, if a giant bear found its way into you would, and if you can't leave, I mean, these people can't leave the establishment. They've got to stay there. They have got to get rid of whatever gets in there. And that's what's going on. And if they have to destroy his business, if they have to destroy his family, individually, if they have to destroy him, they will do it, and they will not give it a second thought. Self-preservation, number one. Number two, making sure that nobody else ever tries it. Now, go back and grab me soundbite 20. I don't want anybody to ever forget this. I keep harping on. To me, this is big. This is where I would not be qualified as a journalist in drive-by media, because to me, this is the only story that's worth anything on the day, July 13th. And this little 11-second soundbite, to me, is everything. And the drive-bys, of course, they didn't even report it. They didn't comment on it. They didn't amplify it. They didn't even acknowledge it. It's Rod Rosenstein. On July 13th, Rosenstein announced the indictment of 12 more Russians. And the indictments are very detailed about how they attempted to get into various computer networks, Democrat National Committee, and all this other stuff. Now, these indictments were pure PR because the people indicted are never going to be served. They're never going to be extradited. They're never going to be in court. These charges are never going to be tested. So these were PR indictments so that Mueller could show Russians were involved and that we've caught them. And Rod Rosenstein, after announcing all the details and the names of the Russians, said this.
There's no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There's no allegation that the conspiracy changed the vote count or affected any election result.
How is that not the news of the day when you figure what is this all about? All of this that we're having to endure here started under the premise the Russians cheated. The presidential election, the Russians got in there and they might have done it with Trump and they took it away from Hillary Clinton. Okay, so Mueller's got some Russians to indict for doing just that. Rosenstein said there is no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There is no allegation that the conspiracy changed the vote count or affected any election result. Meaning, we're not even pursuing that. There's no allegation that that happened, meaning it didn't happen. So what is all the rest of this? Isn't that what this is all about, as far as most people think? So we indict, and by the way, these 12 Russians follow the indictment of 13 different Russian companies and troll farms who were indicted a few months earlier. Not one indictment in anything Mueller has done, not one, has alluded to votes being changed, election outcomes being affected. Yet look what everybody thinks. They think the Russians meddled and the outcome was affected. And it's so bad, the 2018 elections, the Russians are already in there, and they're already messing around. And we already cannot trust the results of 2018 midterm elections. Meanwhile, it didn't happen in 2016. I'm telling you this. Am I overemphasizing this? Am I showing my naivete here? I mean, I don't know how anybody can just gloss over it. Well, I do know how they can gloss over it. And that is if the whole premise that the Russians changed the outcome and did it with Trump was bogus to begin with. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm still maintaining my stack of stuff here chronicling the descent into madness and insanity of the American left and their outfits, their political brethren in the Democrat Party. I've kept some stuff over from previous programs. I didn't have a chance to get into a whole lot of detail. But here's one, and this is from the Miami Herald. The headline, Loyal Democrat donors, we are done with the DNC until they get their act together. So let's see what this is about. While Democrat donors have eagerly opened their wallets 2018 midterm elections, helping Democrat candidates and groups largely outraise their Republican counterparts. By the way, that's not what I've seen. I've seen the RNC has been raking in money at a record clip. But, you know, I don't know which of these stories to believe, because I see, like this one says the Democrats are outraising the Republicans. I saw one earlier this week that the RNC is raising money like they've never seen before. So I don't really know what the truth is, but the purpose of this story is that some rank-and-file Democrats have gotten fed up with what is becoming to the Democrat Party. While Democrat donors have eagerly opened their wallets ahead of the election, helping Democrat candidates and groups outraise Republicans, one exception stands out. That's the Democrat National Committee. The party's signature organization has posted its worst midterm fundraising totals in more than 10 years. No, whoa. Wait just a moment. How can this be? With all of this enthusiasm and all of these Democrat voters simply can't wait to get out there and vote, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. Wait a minute. The DNC posted its worst midterm fundraising totals in more than 10 years. By contrast, the Republican National Committee has nearly doubled the DNC's haul this cycle. The Republicans have brought in $227 million. The Democrats have brought in $115 million. $116 million. Helen Schaefer, retired teacher, Fresno, who had given $7,000 to the DNC over the past 5 election cycles, says she's lost faith in the committee after 2016. So she's giving money to liberal groups, but she's not giving it to the DNC. And there's a number of reasons for it. Some of these people that have given to the DNC are no longer, because they don't like how far left the DNC is going, and others are unhappy it's not going far left enough. But here's the point I want to put on the table. If you listen to the drive-by media, if you watch them every day, you think that the Republican Party, it's always the case, by the way, the Republican Party is always falling apart. The Republican Party is driven and riven by internal conflicts, and it's in bad shape. The Democrats are likewise presented as unified, singular purposed, and ready and loaded for bear. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. The Democrat Party is being pulled and torn apart in I can't tell you how many directions and how many ways. And it's largely because of this new craving of socialism that some of the young ones have, that and this constant demand for talking about impeachment. The bottom line is, folks, the Democrat Party is not this unified force that's insurmountable and unbeatable. Not even close to it. Brief timeout. We'll be back and get back to more of your phone calls.
America's Anchorman, Rush, on the EIB Network. Rush Limbaugh, Talk Radio 560, KSFO.
There you have it once again. Rod Rosenstein, July 13th, Department of Justice in Washington, after announcing 12 more Russian bad guys have been indicted, but they're going to get away with it because they're never going to be served, and they'll never show up in court. And so whatever they've been indicted for will never have to be tested in court, which is the way Mueller seems to be doing things. No, I take it back. That's how the SDNY is doing things. Southern District, New York, with Cohen and so forth. Anyway, back to the phone. Steve in Fort White, Florida. I'm glad you waited, sir. You're next at Open Line Friday. Hi.
Mr. Rush Limbaugh, yes, sir, it is an honor. Let me just say this. My soul belongs to Jesus. My heart belongs to my wife. My mind belongs to you.
Well, I'm glad to be in the club.
You know, if Trump fires somebody, no matter who it is, it's going to be a firestorm. So let's get the ball rolling. Let's go ahead and light that fire. American people are waiting. They're holding back. I've broken 2 teeth just grinding jaws about what's going on here today. He's got to make the move. The clock of history is ticking. He's either got to make history or he's going to become history. We want him to make that move. We'll back him at the ballot box. We're waiting for him. We want him. We need him. He's our country, and he's got to save us.
What do you want him to do?
I want him to start with Mueller, and one by one, fire him and state his case.
Okay, now you realize, and I'm not trying to monkey wrench here. I don't even want to be a downer. I just want you to know, if you fire Mueller, the investigation's not over. They just go out and find somebody to take over, and it might even prolong it and make it longer.
Well, they can only take over if the person that he doesn't fire puts him in that position. Get somebody in there that's the opposite. Get somebody in there that'll make the move and start working on the Democrats.
Yeah, but Trump doesn't get to make that appointment. Rosenstein does.
If he fires Rosenstein, he won't.
Oh, well, in that case, okay.
Hello?
Okay, so we're going to fire Mueller, we're going to fire Rosenstein.
I'm telling you, if you're going to fire one, fire them all. We back him. I want him to hear us. We will back him. Just do it.
I'm telling you, the frustration is, this is the one thing the media probably isn't even factoring. They don't think it's real. They don't think you're going to do anything. You never do. You never do, so why should they be worried about you? What is it like to get your period when it is, when you're not a woman? Well, you would think it's impossible. This is a story in the Huffington Puffington Post, in a story demanding menstrual equity. The Huffington Puffington Post says what it's like to get your period when you're not a woman. This week, a guest writer for the Huffington Puffington Post, Cass Bliss, who obviously isn't, detailed what it's like to get your period when you're not a woman. Cass Bliss, who obviously isn't, a non-binary trans educator. We're talking about 1/10 of 1% of the population here, right? And you notice how mainstream it's become on the left. Cass Bliss, a non-binary trans educator. I was just going to ask if anybody over there on the other side of the glass knows what a non-binary trans educator is. Well, trans is transgender. Non-binary means you don't go both ways. So a non-binary trans educator, well, if we're talking about menstrual equity, we have to be talking about the front hole, right? Which we also learned about earlier this week. The lower front hole as opposed to the upper front hole. Not to be confused with the rear hole or the front stick, which we also learned about today or this week as we're now expanding our horizons and broadening our minds when it comes to transgenderism. Anyway, this story, what it's like to get your period when you're not a woman, went viral. She's even got a hashtag. Are you ready for this? Hashtag bleeding while trans. The Bleeding While Trans campaign in 2017 to prove the biologically impossible claim that men have periods too. The activist Cass Bliss recently created a music video discussing the struggles of having your period while not identifying as a woman in a quest for menstrual equality. You know, I remember, you folks, you people, I hope some of you remember this. Way back in the 90s, talking about militant homosexuality, I warned people that with homosexuality, one of the biggest problems was going to be procreation. I said, as part of gay marriage, you watch somebody is going to try to invent something like an artificial womb. I'm joking about it, and look, we are headed in that direction. So we have here, this is a serious story. I mean, you may be sitting out there laughing, but I'm telling you that there is a sizable block of people reading this who think it's real, that menstrual equity is a serious civil rights issue. It's either unfair or unjust that only certain Americans have a menstrual cycle. It's not fair, it's not right. But what this is really about is when men have periods too. In other words, the Bleeding While Trans campaign to prove the biologically impossible claim that men have periods too. She created a music video discussing the struggles of having your period while not identifying as a woman. Identifying means thinking of yourself as. So when you're not thinking of yourself as a woman, but you are, look, that's the bottom, you are a woman, but you're not identifying, and then you have a period, it's so confusing and disorienting and unfair. You see yourself as not a woman, and yet you're still having a period. And we've got to do something about this injustice. So we have to come up with menstrual equity It may not be all bad guys. It may be, if this ever happens, it may end up granting you permission to be bitchy 1 week a month. Who knows? Am I going to get grief for stereotypical? I'm sorry, just sharing my reactions as we all learn about this together. For example, the doctors, I'm sorry, I skipped a line. The colors of tampon boxes are pink, and there are no discrete garbage cans in men's bathroom stalls to dispose of tampons and pads. Again, another outward sign of the injustice and the discrimination of our patriarchal cis culture. And things can't be right until men have periods as well, and until there are tampon boxes in discrete garbage cans in men's room at the gas station. Cass Bliss says, I am a non-binary trans menstruator. This woman's probably teaching somebody's kids. We're taking, this is just, I gotta be very, very careful here, but this is, let me just quote. It may be all do is to quote here. Again, from Cass Bliss, who obviously isn't. I am a non-binary trans menstruator, someone with a uterus that bleeds monthly, but who identifies outside of the fixed categories of male and female. See, non-binary actually means you're neither. You're not man or woman. You're just it. That's what non-binary means. You're not man or woman. But she has a uterus that bleeds monthly, but she identifies as either man or woman. This isn't fair, you see. Because of that, she says, I have to navigate the challenges of getting my period every month in a world that refuses to acknowledge that not everyone who gets their period is a woman, and not every woman gets their period. No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, folks. If you get a period, you are a woman. The same can be said if you don't have a Y chromosome. It's settled science. It's not what you think. It's not how you identify, and it's not how you present. If you have a period, you are a woman. Now, it may be unfair, but you got to take it up with somebody you may not believe in.
UW-Madison has the tampons and the disposals and the
No kidding. University of Wisconsin-Madison?
Yes, they have them.
They have tampon disposal, pink tampon disposal boxes in the restrooms, the men's restrooms, University of Madison.
Let's double check.
Okay, well, then she can go there. See, there is some place progressive enough to recognize that men can have periods and use tampons in the men's room. What's it? You're exactly. Real men cannot have periods. Exactly right. Real men cannot have periods, and only real women can. Now, I'm telling you, do you realize how I just stepped in it by just using the word real there? Do you realize how I am now going to become the focus of anger and rage among people in this community? But you're right. Real men cannot get a period. Real men cannot get pregnant. Real men don't have a uterus or a womb. And I have just become one of the most controversial figures in American pop culture by making those statements in such absolute form. But Mr. Snerdley was getting confused, and I had to set him straight. There's enough confusion out there without this kind of thing adding to it. And now moving on, ladies and gentlemen, Miami Hurricane football team. I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't get into the details. But we're into the stack here that demonstrates the descent to madness and insanity of the American left. Miami Hurricanes. Now, this football team, traditionally, this football team has been so good and so tough that many think that it could have beaten the Cleveland Browns the last 2 years. It was that good. records rival anything in the Cincinnati Bengals organization. These guys are not to mess with, the Miami Hurricanes. But they have now had a significant uniform change in the upcoming season. They're going to wear eco-friendly uniforms made from ocean garbage. University of Miami has announced that the Hurricanes are going to announce a team will wear eco-friendly uniforms and cleats made from garbage culled from the ocean. The jerseys made from ocean garbage will be made by Adidas. Specially made version of the Adidas Parlay A1 uniform be made of 70% yarn, Econol yarn, E-C-O-N-Y-L, Econol yarn created for reclaiming fishing nets and other nylon materials removed from the oceans, according to USA Today. The uniform jersey will be made in the team's traditional orange color, but there will reportedly be accents that serve as an ode to the cause to end plastic pollution of the oceans. Why don't they just change the logo to a straw? Instead of the Hurricanes, call them the University of Miami Straws. You really want to call attention to something here. Miami coach Mark Richt, R-I-C-H-T, said that the Miami Hurricanes are pleased to help promote sustainability around the world. The Hurricanes are going to wear the new ocean-friendly uniforms made of ocean garbage at the season opener against LSU in Arlington, Texas. That'll be at the Cowboys Stadium, AT&T Park, on September. Okay, we move on now from what to do if you get a period when you're a man to Franz in Scranton, Pennsylvania. It's your turn. You're next up. It's great to have you here with us, Franz. How are you?
Mega dittos from Luzerne County, which carried the president to victory.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to quickly shout out to my father, Jonathan, who's sitting in the car listening to you right now, smoking a cigar. So he knows now why I haven't called him back. I'll call you back after this day.
Right on. What kind of cigar do you think he's smoking?
He likes Monte Cristos, but he'll smoke anything. He's a connoisseur, but at this point.
Right, but he's not a snob about it.
No.
Exactly right.
Years of Obama, he smoked anything he could get.
Okay, cool.
But I want to say this, Rush. Last week I was having dinner. I ran into Senator Bob Casey. Now, we're hoping that Senator Bob Casey gets term limited and we get great Lou Barletta in there. But my point was, I didn't go over to him. We disagree politically. I didn't go over to him. I didn't bother him. I didn't argue with him, didn't anything. The liberals want to fight with you over everything. I made one Twitter thing about seeing him, and I got barraged by people saying how wrong I was to say where he was and this and that. Well, anyway, and I was called a racist and all those other things, which I get tired of.
Well, are you? Are you one?
Oh, yeah, I'm a racist.
Well, we just have to make sure here. I'm just asking. Don't be. Yeah, I know you're not, but I never know.
No, exactly. No, it's one of those things where you're called into question because you're a Republican. Now, I also want to say the biggest lie that has been told by the Democrats or the liberals, is that only Republicans voted for the president. It took Republicans. It took Democrats. It took independents to vote for the president. They ignored.
Look, I'm sure some men who have periods voted for Trump too. I mean, I don't think there were all boundaries were crossed. But look, let me go back to you said you saw Governor Casey and you didn't even think about going up and harassing him and so forth, whereas the Democrats do this. But here's do you expect, and don't misunderstand the tone of my voice. I'm trying to understand why that's a big deal. Are you expecting like a gold star for not harassing him when they harass us? Why is that an important point to make?
I think it's an important point to make that Republicans want you to live your life. Even if you're in public service, they want you to enjoy a dinner. They want you to enjoy your life. Not the politics is for a debate forum, but not for torturing somebody like Sarah Sanders. She can't even go out to dinner. And by the way, happy birthday to Governor Huckabee today. My other thing I want to tell you, that's the thing. We want you to live your life. We don't want you to infringe on our life, and we don't want to infringe on your life. A debate forum is where it is. A call or an open town hall, fine. You could have those debates.
Let me tell you something about this. Can I ask your age?
I am 48.
48. Okay. Well, nothing. There's no good or bad about it. I'm just curious because I have found, and I don't want to talk you out of this. Don't misunderstand. But the younger people are, the more inclined they are to think that if the liberals just got to know us and if they just realize that we really want them to enjoy life and have fun, they wouldn't hate us so much. I used to think that. I used to think if they just got past all these cliches about me, that they wouldn't say these horrible things. They don't want to have a different view of conservatism. They don't want to have a different or even true view of conservatism. They're not interested in understanding you. They simply don't want you around. They don't want you to exist. They don't want to have to listen to you no matter what you think or say. They will bully you and intimidate you as much as they have to get you to shut up, to get you to stop going out in public. We're dealing with genuine Stalinist type of Aryans who think the purpose of power is to tell other people how to live. I can't tell you the number of times I have offered, I'll do it again now, Mr. Zuckerberg or Mr. Brin or Mr. Page at Google. I will go anywhere. I'll meet you for as long as it takes to help you properly understand conservatism. I've offered this over the course of my career. I have yet to be taken up on it. I never will be taken up on it. They don't want to know that you want them to be happy. They don't care about any. This is why they are not to be made accommodations with. They are to be defeated. They are to be kept in the minority at all times. That's the lesson to learn about.
Unstoppable Rush on the EIB network. Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
I hate to be so blunt, folks, but there's no way that you're going to be able to convince people so filled with hate to like you, to love you. Doesn't matter how many times, how much time you take trying to tell them who you really are when they hate you to begin with. And remember what Obama told all these people. October 23rd, 2010, Obama says, punish your enemies. Get in their face. If they bring a knife, bring a gun, or whatever. You know the drill.
And now, from sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
But hey, I'll offer to do it again here. Facebook and Twitter and Google and I don't know, Apple, I don't think they're part of it, but the social media sites, these tech leaders. Let me get the story here. Oh, by the way, something else happened out there that is right exactly what I told you yesterday is going to happen. I've got to get to that right now. Hang on. Tech giants meeting today to discuss countermeasures to election disinformation campaigns. And this story is all over the tech blogs that I read, and they are digging it. They are lapping it up. They are loving it. Because this is the purpose. These tech giants ought to be meeting to find ways to keep conservatives off the platforms. That's exactly what they think tech leaders should be doing. Folks, they hate us. It is, and by the way, nobody's born hating. That has to be taught. That has to be instilled, and it has been. These kids, these lives, I think it's primarily happening via education, but in some cases it may happen in the home. More than a dozen tech giants are meeting today to discuss countermeasures for state-sponsored disinformation campaigns on their platforms during the run-up to the 2018 midterm elections. BuzzFeed has the details. Says the meeting was arranged by Facebook. Last week, Facebook's head of cybersecurity policy, Nathaniel Gleicher, invited employees of a dozen companies, including Google, Microsoft, Snapchat, to gather at Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco. The meeting will have a three-part agenda. Each company presents the work they have been doing to counter information operations. All this means is how to keep conservatism off the platforms. Disguised as how to keep the Russians out. See, the Russians and conservatives are all the same. Russians helping Trump is the same as Russians helping Republicans or conservatives. Each company presents the work they have been doing to counter information operations, a discussion period for problems that each company faces in this quest, and a talk about whether such a meeting should become a regular occurrence. Follows a similar meeting in May, that one attended by senior reps from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. The CIA, the FBI, the NSA all agree that Russia interfaced. Okay, grab somebody number 20. Here we go. The CIA, FBI, NSA all agree that Russia interfered in the U.S. presidential election through fake social media posts and other activities.
There's no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There's no allegation that the conspiracy changed the vote count or affected any election result.
Rod Rosenstein there, back on July 13th, announcing the indictment of Russians. I'll tell you, this is such a crock. And here's this one particular tech blog reporting, and this, by the way, this is the tech blog editorializing in a news story. The CIA, the FBI, and the NSA all agree that Russia interfered in the U.S. presidential election, fake social media posts, and other activities. A number of people have been charged with criminal offenses in regard to interference with that election. Play it again, Sam.
There's no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There's no allegation that the conspiracy changed the vote count or affected any election result.
And yet they write a number of individuals have been charged with criminal offenses in regard to interference with that election. There wasn't any interference in the election. But can't you at least admit the Russians meddled? If it'll make you happy, but I'm not going to fall into the trap, because when you say the Russians meddled, what you mean is the Russians tampered and succeeded in changing the outcome. You people think Hillary Clinton would have won if the Russians hadn't done what she did, or they did. And it's not true, and there isn't any evidence for it. Anyway, I will offer myself up again to Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, and whoever else is in this group. If you really want to understand conservatives, because you really don't, you really have no idea who we are. If you really want to understand, I'll meet you anywhere. In fact, I will even venture, I will put my life on the line and actually enter the city limits of San Francisco to come out and meet you. How many times have I made this offer, Mr. Snerdley? Yeah, and the last time I made it, you felt certain that I would be taken up on it. And I told you, no way. No way, no how. By the way, Fox News is reporting that Troy Balderson is now the official winner in Ohio of the U.S. House special election. He was running against that O'Connor guy. And remember, it was very, very close, and they had think of a recount, but it was just 18 minutes ago that Fox News published the headline, and it says details to come. Ohio GOP State Senator Troy Balderson wins U.S. House special election. This is the race. It's replacing a retiring House member, and this race will be rerun again in November. This just determines who has the seat until November. So these same two guys will be running the same race again in the midterms in November. Do you remember yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, that I introduced to you the new concept of corporate gun control? For those of you who were not here yesterday, let me briefly run through this. The left has figured out that it is impossible at the present time to actually get rid of the Second Amendment. It is not going to be successful to use the government to confiscate weapons. They have made the judgment that going after people's guns using the power of government or the efforts to eliminate the Second Amendment will fail. And so they are employing new tactics, and they're not advertising this. They're not bragging about it. They're not discussing it. They're not beating their chests when it succeeds. And the name corporate gun control it doesn't mean that it is all exclusively corporate strategy and behavior. It's just to distinguish it from government. They've given up on the idea of using government to get rid of guns, to find them and confiscate them, to get rid of the Second Amendment, and instead they're using the private sector to do it. The way they are doing it, and the reason why it's being called corporate, is that participating CEOs will take their companies out of business relationships with any entities that support the Second Amendment or donate money to the NRA, have firearms training classes. So if the CEO of the ABC widget company learns that one of their prime customers heavily supports the NRA, they will cease doing business with them. They may even get to the point of firing and not hiring employees who own guns, who use guns, or who contribute or donate to the NRA or any other gun rights group. This is already happening. If a broadcast outfit is requested to carry advertising by a group or a company which has ties to guns, gun rights groups, or whatever, the CEO can refuse and is refusing the business. The objective is to make it financially painful to support the Second Amendment and gun rights groups. Lending institutions and banks are a big part of this. If you need a mortgage, if you go to a participating, and there's not a list of these things. I mean, they're very quiet about this. If you go to a lending institution or a bank, you need money for anything. You want to buy a house, want to buy a car. On the application form, there will be a section about your relationship to guns and the NRA. And if you support the NRA, if you own guns, they will turn down your request for the loan. This is how it is now taken. It's just beginning, and it's its early stages, as I say. It's a George Soros, not totally him, but he's here at the foundational efforts of it. It is the result of liberal thinking. They've given up on the idea that government will succeed at this, even if they get elected president. They realize that gun owners love their guns too much. They're too devoted to the Constitution. That isn't the way to get rid of guns and to get you to give yours up. If you need a loan, if you want to buy a house, if you need money for anything, and who doesn't, and you go to a lending institution and you have anything to do with guns, they'll refuse you until you get rid of your guns or stop your membership in the NRA. Now, I saw a story in the news that is exactly this, except it's not about guns. We all know who David Horowitz is. Got a website called Front Page Mag. He grew up as a child of communists in New York. He was a child communist, a young adult communist, till someday magically saw the light and has become a conservative activist. Very visible, very public, has a thing in Palm Beach every November called Restoration Weekend, where a bunch of conservatives pay a bunch of money to come and stay at the Breakers and listen to a weekend slate filled with conservative speakers and motivational experts and so forth. The David Horowitz Freedom Center is an offshoot of many of his organizations that he has established. The David Horowitz Freedom Center accepts donations. It's a 501c3. They raise money to then help various charitable causes. And get this, the David Horowitz Freedom Center has had their donation processing system blocked by Visa and MasterCard following a campaign by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Visa has since denied this to Breitbart News. They're denying any involvement in the blacklisting of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. They stated, Horowitz in a recent email, that its ability to accept donations by credit card has been disabled by both Visa and MasterCard following a campaign by the Southern Poverty Law Center to label the Freedom Center as a hate group. The situation comes shortly after Robert Spencer of Jihad Watch was forced off the funding platform Patreon following pressure from MasterCard. It's the same principle here. Now, as if Visa is denying, who is the Southern Poverty Law Center? The Southern Poverty Law Center is, these people have so much money that they have it parked in offshore accounts in the Caymans and elsewhere where nobody can get to it. They may be shielding and hiding from tax authorities their own income. I don't know why else you would have offshore accounts. They may not be, but I mean, it's been discovered that they do business that way. And when they find anybody else doing business that way, you have an offshore account, the left is looking at you, you know damn well what they're going to speculate about you. Well, anyway, the Southern Poverty Law Center sets itself up as the arbiter of which groups in America are hate-sponsored, hate-filled, and hate-promoting. And it's practically every conservative organization out there. And here these corporations come along, and they don't even challenge it. Southern Poverty Law Center says X is a hate group. They just accept it, and they act accordingly. Now, in the Horowitz case, they were making it impossible for people to donate to that charity simply because it's conservative and because the Southern Poverty Law Center said so. This is exactly how the battle over your guns and getting them away from you is being waged. It's just at a trickle now. It's just starting, but it has ominous potential. Corporations are not brave. Corporations try to find out which way the wind is blowing and get right in it. They don't want to buck trends. They don't want to be against the wind. And they want to be perceived as hip. So climate change, they're all in. Whether they believe it or not, they want people to think they do. And it's leftist causes that they even get bullied into supporting. I remember you remember it wasn't long ago, 10, 15 years ago, where every major American company had some kind of green initiative as part of its marketing to separate you from your dollars. Remember the automobile company running commercials for its cars, starting out with how polar bears have no place to live because global warming's melting all of their ice. Then some guy goes out and buys some hybrid electric car, and the polar bear finds out waiting in the driveway for the new owner to hug him for buying an electric car, thereby enabling the polar bear to live. If the polar bear had been in the guy's driveway, the guy would be dead the moment he got out of the car. But this is the latest effort underway. So get past this idea that you can make them like you, and that they're even interested in that, because they're not. They hate you too much. They literally do, folks. We'll be back after. All right, let me grab a call and sneak it in here. It's Open Line Friday. We head on down the tracks. It's Randy in Pittsburgh, and welcome, sir. Great to have you here with us.
Well, greetings, Rush. I hope you're well. I've got two questions for you, given your ability to make the complex understandable.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The first is relative to Manafort's circumstances and the bank fraud. I'm curious on whether he got any loans. I know he didn't get some, but if he did get some, and in regards to the ones that he didn't get, did he pay back the ones that he got? And if he didn't get loans and he paid back the ones that he did get, what harm was done to anyone? The second question I have is in regard to this, quote, hush money. And I'm curious when a confidentiality agreement crosses the boundary to extortion and blackmail. So if you give me your thoughts on that, I'm going to hang up.
Okay, on the Manafort business, there were 8 charges that he was found guilty of. There were 10 counts for which he was exonerated. Now, Shannon Bream on Fox had one of the jurors, and she was a Trumpist. She was a Trump voter, and she admitted they wanted Manafort. She wanted Manafort to not be guilty. And it was just one juror that held out on those other 10. It was one juror that made the difference. On the specifics of what Manafort did with his loans and not paying them back, I really didn't get into that detail on the various charges against Manafort. That probably is my bad. The reason I didn't is because I didn't think Manafort was going to be found not guilty. Manafort is there for a specific reason. It was to give Mueller a notch in the belt. A conviction for whatever is all they wanted out of this, and the more the better. But just get a conviction which validates and justifies the whole investigation. And Manafort, he skirted the edges of things. I don't know if I wrote it. On your other thing about NDAs and blackmail and extortion, none, the thing to know, and it's very simple, none of what Cohen admitted doing is a crime. The reason is that Trump, as the candidate, can donate any amount to his own campaign that he wants. None of those payments to either of those women, no matter how they were made, is a violation of election law. None. Audio soundbites. We're going to start here at number 2. This is just, it's funny, and it's not related to anything. C-SPAN's Washington Journal today, during a segment with the, I guess they were talking about presidential polling. They had a caller from Texas by the name of Thomas.
When Obama became president, you know there was going to be a Republican. All you have to do is go put on AM radio and listen to Rush Limbaugh and the rest of them. I won $500 against a Cruz supporter. I said Trump's going to be president. Oh, man, no.
Are you saying that because we had a Democrat, because we had President Obama, the pendulum was naturally going to swing?
Of course, if you don't listen to Rush Limbaugh. I mean, from the Bertha case to Rush Limbaugh, and as soon as they took the FTC fairness law out, all kind of accusations. Well, Hillary's a criminal. It started way long before that.
Well, this guy, the point of this is as soon as Trump ran, this guy knew that he was going to be elected because I was going to support him. Yeah, Trump's going to be president. You listen to Rush Limbaugh, he says fairness doctrine and so forth. It just shows I'm living in their heads.